And now I am honored to invite Dr. Tawfiq the Adli, Hebrew University. Tawfiq is an archaeologist and art historian. His field of expertise is in Islamic studies and culture throughout the medieval period. He divides his time between archaeology, where he has conducted several excavation and surveys. He teaches at the Department of Islam and Middle Eastern Studies, Art History at the Hebrew University. The title of his lecture is Planning the Qasba, Imposing Colonial Lines on Indigenous Societies, the Case of Lead.
Thank you, Professor Abbasi. In comparison to Shira, imagine the Italian industry, car industry, like I'm driving Fiat 127. Shira is with, I don't know, like Lancia, Giulietta, like something, crossing the whole country. I am stuck in one or two neighborhoods. So please, thank you, Liat and Professor for inviting me. So I will delve into my case. I would like to start with concerning dates and their relation to a construction plan that was imposed on Old Lod or Lydia, as referred to in the British administrative correspondence. The aerial photo we are looking on now was taken on the morning of 26 of June 1936. Few days earlier at Jaffa, on the 16th of June, announcements were thrown in Arabic informing the public that there would be explosions in the area that would endanger the lives of the residents, and therefore the residents were asked to evacuate the area. Next, on the 17th, the roads to Jaffa were blocked. The demolition of the houses began in the direction of the French hospital. The residents of the houses were evacuated, and after the houses were inspected, they were blown up. Now I would like to look on two pictures and read their captions. The first, titled Palestine Disturbances 1936, capsized locomotive as seen through railroad bridge, and more in the summary we read near the Mamluk Bridge. The second, titled Palestine Disturbances 1936, site of a house in Lydia blown up by military order, owners searching for family relics. Now, in 1945, a rebuilding plan was proposed to Lydia. It covers a wide area and extends mostly to the southwest toward the main train station where British staff was living. This scheme overlaid the previous plan of Lod. The new Lydia was physically overlaid on Lod in the shape of colorful lines with red indicating streets and green patches referring to open plazas. All was drawn above Lod's gray and undetailed outlines. Although the British authorities made a detailed survey of the old town, it does not tell us anything about the people who created and lived under the black lines. These crossing lines outline a grid of orthogonal roads with three main lines crossing the town from east to west and more than four stretching from north to south. The planners went a step further and proposed to demolish entire areas in order to create public-owned open spaces. Such open plazas were proposed in front and the rear of the mosque and the church. The area in front of the church and the mosque was a densely built one, full of houses and other buildings, including the monastery that served St. George Church. Now, the planner, Polchik, proposed to demolish a living quarter in order to create a plaza that will allow a proper view of the church. Before we move on with the Polchik plans, I would like to read this paragraph. About Lod's landscape, he says, it was poor, quiet poor, one-floor houses, maybe 2 floors. There was a hint of a public garden, and it was very miserable. The only interesting buildings were the church and the mosque. Polchuk, this is part of Polchuk interviewed by Professor Chaim Yacobi in his book, The Jewish Arab City. Now, back to the ground. Few buildings in this living quarters were laconically described by Yaakov Ouri, the antiquity inspector back then. I will mention 3 of them, and each will take us to a different quarter. I will partly reconstruct each quarter. The first one, and I'm quoting Ouri, Al-Hammam, he is describing. Interior not visited, facade of rather solid masonry, lower courses of large sandstone slabs, joints between courses filled with stone chips in mortar. On top of roof, and he is saying, noted from some distance, is a perched octagonal small tower with block arches. Second, Beit el-Far, he is giving a title. House containing square domed roof, cut away at the 4 corners in stalactite style. The third one, Dar Hassuna, upper floor in ruins, dated by inscription 1294 AH, ground floor of lofty vaults of earlier date. And Ouri concluded his letter with this paragraph. As regard Old Lydia, it occurs to me that the proposed wholesale obliteration of the old town will hardly remunerated by the proposed present scheme. I would suggest a modification to the scheme with a view to the preservation of architectural features and some of the ancient aspect of the town. End of quote. In what follows, I would like to reveal part of what was lied under the red and green lines and patches. To do so, I will propose some urban social reconstruction of 2 neighborhoods that were planned to be partly or totally damaged following the reconstruction plan. Those reconstructions are based on information retrieved from court documents written mainly toward the end of the 19th century. I am not concerned with the history of planning or pretend to understand what stands behind plans. What I mainly would like to know more about are people that made this city, their families, the relations between each other and villages around, how they looked like, dressed, and more. By the end, I am also eager to understand how such a living organism loses capital or any meaning. I will start with Harat al-Hammam. The Hammam was destroyed after 48. The only evidence to its existence, other than memories of refugees, are a 1936 aerial photo and the city plan from 29. This city plan will serve as the base for our reconstructions of the urban fabric. Into this plan, I will incorporate the social aspects in the shape of people living in and using those buildings. Now, shops in the Hammam's vicinity are mentioned in 2 court hearings recorded in the Sijil, or court records. In one dated November 5th, 1875, Sheikh Awad Bas bought from his mother Fatuna al-Wikah a house and 3 shops in the market, Souq. The Hammam courtyard bounded the southern side of the shops. On the east side was the road to which the house and the shops were open. On the north stood the shops of Abd al-Rauf al-Naji, and on the west stood the Hammam and Salih al-Naji shops. Hence, if we were leaving the Hammam after a nice bath and heading toward the Caravanserai Khan al-Hilu, we would pass the shops of Shamsuddin al-Alami, turn right and pass the shop endowed to the Masjid Jami, pass a few more shops and reach a junction crossing the main town market. If we were to make another right turn here and face east, and I marked this with a yellow line on the map, we would pass the shops of Al-Kaiz and Shamsuddin al-Alami. At this point, we may notice some smoke coming out of the Hammam's chimney behind shops on our right. In this imaginary tour, we have partly reconstruction sections in the city around 1880. Some of the estates in the area probably changed hands through the years, while others have remained in the hands of their owners from the previous century. Such could be the case of Sheikh Shamsuddin al-Alami estate endowed in 1846. The Alami mansion or dar, situated to the south of the Hammam, is described in detail in Shamsuddin Waqfiyya. In this endowment deed, several estates are mentioned: the house, an oil press, a soap factory. Thus, the Alamis owned an entire production line that could produce olive oil, cook it for producing soap, and also produce sesame tahina and oil. They also owned shops in the city center where they could sell their products. Shamsuddin al-Alami was the head of the major branch of the well-known Alamis of Jerusalem in Lod. It seemed he was well acquainted with the notables of Jaffa, the commercial and administrative center to which Lod was affiliated. When he married the sister of Jaffa Mufti in May 10, 1805, he invited the Wali of Saida, the Sheikh of the two Harams, and the Mutasarrif of Gaza, Hajj Abu al-Marek. Another prominent guest was the Mufti of Gaza, Abdullah San'allah. At some point, also held the position of the Ifta in both Gaza and Jaffa. It seemed that the Alamis played some role during the troubled time at least at the beginning of the 19th century. This is also attested to by their connections and branches in different cities, mainly Jerusalem and Gaza. Their rule in Lod and the connection to Jaffa through Lod may shed more light on the relations between the two cities by the mid-19th century. We can now move on to another section that was proposed for demolition. The neighborhood in front of the Khan al-Hilu, here Uri described Beit al-Far, this is the title, as containing square domed roof cut away at the four corners, as I said, in stalactite style, end of quote. This house was occupied by Hajj Mahmoud al-Far, whose shop near the Hammam we have just passed. On our way to this house, we passed the newly renovated row of shops in the Khan facade. On the other side of the road, the southern one, we pass another row of shops, including the shops of the Karazon family, and above them the family home. Next, we pass the three shops owned by Haja Sitti Khwitha, and please remember this name. And next, on the corner of the block, the three shops, and above them the house of Haj Abdul Majid Abu al-Huda al-Taji. Abu al-Huda al-Taji's house occupies the corner between Souq al-Bazar and the road to the, leading to the east of the Khan. When reaching the junction of Souq al-Bazar and the road leading south, we turn right past the Abu al-Huda Taji resident and turn right again into the passage leading to Hajj Mahmoud al-Far home. This house has two floors. The 36 photo reveals a dorm room on the first floor. This may be the living room of our host, decorated with the stalactite or muqarnas that Ori described. Back to the tour with Hajj Mahmoud al-Far. As we walk beside him, we can see that he is wearing a tarbush or fez, if you like, with a laffe around and a silk gumbaz. In his pocket is a silver watch worth half of the price of the gumbaz. In winter, he would also wear an abaya, costing almost as much as the watch. If the sheikh wanted to impress his guest, he could have told us while we were drinking our coffee and smoking hookah with him in the upper Liwan room that he has 3 camels along with 7 head of cattle and 1 mule. These must have lived in the stable on the ground floor. If lucky, we would also meet the Hajj's wife, Nafisa bint Khalil Abu Hosa, the mother of his 5 sons and 4 daughters. According to the deed of inheritance written in November 1895, 2 weeks after the Hajj Mahmoud's death, his father summoned some of Lord's dignitaries to a meeting. The court records reveal information beyond the boundaries of the city. It not only appoints the mukhtars of the various districts mentioned above, and thus also places Hajj al-Far higher on the social scale, but also attests to a wide-ranging regional connections. The document states al-Far's debts to people from villages located east of Lod, on the hills leading to Jerusalem. The arrows making those connections which indicate the city's outreach and extend beyond its borders also appear in other documents and can be used to map the connections of merchants in the city with the surrounding villages and towns. Thus, the map expands and is homogenized by the names, the types of goods, and the occupations of their owners. According to the Hajj Mahmoud property count, we understand that his main occupation was soap production. We ran this mainly from debts to inhabitants of 5 villages, Dir, Qadis, Ne'alin, Safa, and Jammala. Hajj Mahmoud must have read frequently with the people of Jammala, as most of his debts were owed to them. Next slide is, I don't know, something stuck here. I know my slide. Okay, now it's here. Now we can move to something different, as we can say. Some photos taken around 23rd, depicting the celebration of St. George Day. We are looking on 2 pictures taken from the same point, but in each the camera was directed once to the east, where the Greek patriarch is making his way to the chapel situated on the convent upper floor, and the second, the lens is directed to the west, to the street and plaza in front of the Great Mosque. We can see the city in one of its high days. People are gathered around the religious ceremony and are busy buying baklava or baklava, if you would like, sesame bread, roasted meat, and other products displayed to the side of the plaza. On the corner, we can notice sugar cans that I still remember from my childhood when participating in the celebration and returning back home showing pieces of full of sugar water. Now, back to the beginning and Uri laconic report. The 3rd building we read about was Dar Hassuna, described as upper floor in ruins, dated by inscription again 1294 AH, a ground floor of lofty vaults of earlier date. To conclude our talk, I will read a long description of one of the major pillars of this Dar Hassuna, the Hajja, nicknamed Hajja Sitt Ikhwitha. This description is by Philip Belde Springer, who met the Hajjah in person by the end of the 19th century and left us a colorful description of her. You may also frame it after yesterday, Edward Said, as Orientalist, but we go on with this description. As I sat at the door here, this is the coffee house, yeah. In the main street of, as I sat at the door of a little coffee house in the main street of Lydia, sipping my mocha, coffee, and drawing at the sweet-scented tombak through a bubbling nargila, ست اخوتها, with that huffly bearing which I knew so well, came along upon her horse. It was years since I had seen the lady of her brethren, but I recognized her at once and saw that her horse's hoofs on the loose stones and the musical tinkling of the gold coins on her burqa or half veil was the signal for the hushing of conversation among the groups of squatting coffee drinkers. The lady was a very dark-complexioned Egyptian with thick lips, strong jaws, and a set of teeth, in spite of her fairly advanced age, as white as the snow of Hermon. Though certainly not what you could call a pretty woman, she was far from being an ugly one. She was over 5 feet and a half in height, and she sat astride her Arab thoroughbred like a man, and with all man's assurance. Indeed, at a distance, you might easily have mistaken her for one had it not been for her characteristic Egyptian dress. The lower part of her face was hidden by her burqa, lined with heavy gold coins in order to hold the veil down. Her shirt was dark blue, and over this she had black and white silk grill, a brown and white striped silk kaftan, or long robe open in front from the top to the bottom, and finally on the top of these various articles of clothing a black mantle, which when astride the broad saddle of her horse she threw over her knees, broad silver bracelet ornamented her arms, which were bare as the broad sleeves of her cloak only covered them when they were hanging down, and a pair of yellow sheepskin boots completed her outdoor costume. Now, all of the buildings, secular and religious, were part of the proposed open plaza and wide roads marked green and red on the plan. When drawing and painting the plan, none of the depicted figures, rituals, habits, culture, and more was considered. This was just one portion proposed to be demolished, and we can just imagine the rest. And now I wanted to end with that, but then Yoni came with this. Now, Yoni, you brought and here again, I'm also an art historian, supposed to be. Now you have those planners, if you would like, Yoni. They are coming from the wilderness to this civilized place with those nice classical columns. It took us a while to reach this style of classical columns. And I can tell you a long story about how we reached this basis. And those people were like having their rest there, I don't know, sipping their coffee, having their nargila. And those beasts, they are like, I have to say, I'm full of mercy for them. Like they are nice creatures, more than they wanted to be described. And suddenly you have this break in the middle. And you started also with the Supreme Court, I have to say. We can place ourselves or myself. I'm not taking the rule of Daniel. I'm only with Fiat 127, so it's. But we are there, sleeping with wide open eyes, looking at what happened. People were also then having this wide open eyes, and today it's the same wide open eyes. The difference is the previous beasts are not there anymore. The current one, we are really turning them to nice creatures and turning the wilderness more civilized here in this. Thank you all. Sorry.